welcome to our second lesson that's going to be talking about arrays. In this lesson, we're going to talk about arrays using the random feature, and also we're going to introduce a new feature called the floor or the int function. So in previous lesson that we dealt with arrays, we kind of just chose specific values to be used when we called our arrays. In today's lesson, we're going to mix it up a little bit, showing you how we can get randomized items from our list using this new feature that we're going to learn. So I've created the starter code for this. You can vary your list of foods however you want it. I just kind of chose Google top 10, I guess, junk food, because I just put in foods, and this is what I got. This is no way by any means my list of favorite foods. You can make it your own list of favorite foods. Mine would probably include things like macaroni pie and all kinds of, West Indian foods. But again, you can just make this your own if you want to. So we've created a variable that deals with food. We've created a list, and we know it's a list because it's denoted by this square bracket. Each item in the list, because we have a string here, or we have text, it is within quotes, and each item in the list has, just whatever there, has a comma separating each item in the list. What we've went down here and done is that we've kind of used the text feature. We haven't used this a lot yet, but the text feature, it takes in whatever you're going to say, whatever string you're going to use, within quotes, of course, because strings must be in quotes. We have a comma, and then we're putting the x and a y value of where we want to place that particular text. I put a text size to make it a little bit bigger. It's usually defaulted to a very much smaller text size. So this is what we have on our screen. And today what we're going to do is that we're going to look at how, instead of just choosing a specific index, like we mentioned the last time, we said each item in our list is at a specific index. Instead of just choosing one specific index that we want to show on our screen, we wanted to randomly choose a feature or one of these items from our list. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is we are going to create another variable that's going to kind of be like our food choice, and then we're going to set it up with the random feature in it so that we can make this a little bit more interesting. So if I go here, I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call mine food choice, but you can call yours whatever you want to. Again, variables can have any names that you want it to have. So I'm going to do that on the top there. I'm going to go inside of my setup. So again, make sure you're within these curly braces inside the setup. And I'm going to say my food choice is equal to, and remember the random feature. So the random feature went something like this. So it said random. We have opened our parentheses, so denotes that this is a function. And you can say, hey, random between whatever values you want it to. In this particular example, we wanted to start at the beginning of the list. Remember the last time we said in computer science, our list begins at 0. So we're going to start at 0, and then we wanted to go to the end of this list. So it's randomly going to choose any items starting at the beginning and the end of the list. So we can go ahead and count all the items in the list, and we can put a value there. But what if we wanted to add items to our list or take away items from our list and our list changes? There is this feature, what is function called the .length function, that we can add to, let's say, our list item, and it allows us to, no matter how many items you have in your particular list, it's going to find out the length of your list, basically. So we can go in there and says, you know what, foods is my list, and I'm going to do the length of that list. So foods.length is going to, no matter how many items I have in here, whether I add or minus items or whatever it is, it's always going to return the highest possible value of my list. So I'm saying, okay, my food choice is equal to random anywhere within this list, because I'm starting the beginning and I'm going to all the way to the end of the list. So now we're going to go in here and we're going to see how this works. So I'm going to use a console.log to kind of go in there and see what happens. So I'm going to console.log, and I am going to console.log my food choice. So food choice, and let's see what happens below. So I run this. Notice below it's given me 8.849, this long, pretty much long fraction that's here. And that's going to be a problem, because remember in our last lesson we said, hey, when we want to get an item from the list, we're saying, hey, my list starts at the 0 index. So this is the first item in my list. So I would usually put a number there that's going to denote, hey, I want the index 1 or the index 2 or the 0 index, and I'm going to get a specific item from the list. But 8.849, this very long fraction, is not an index within my list. So when we return a random feature, it gives us a random value as a fraction. Now what we have to do when we're working with lists and we want to return a random value, we have to turn that fraction into a whole number or an integer. And in order to do that, there's two different ways that we can do this. One of them is called floor, and the other way is called int. So either one of those work, but what we have to do is that we are going to take our floor function, and I'm going to try it both ways so that you can see it. We are going to take our floor function, and we are going to put it in front of our random, and that's going to allow us to have that whole number that we're looking for, so that we can find that index within our list. So let's go in there, and we're going to say that this, right in front of here, I'm going to use the floor first, floor, I don't know if I can spell, 2 O's, and then I am going to open my parentheses there. So it's kind of saying for this entire function that I have here, I want the floor function to work for it. And because I have an open parentheses here, I have to go in at the end and put another closing. So I have 1, 2, and I have my closing that's there. So I'm going to run that again. And now if you look below here, now it has become a whole number versus a fraction. It works the same way if we use the int. An int is short for integer, and we know an integer is a whole number. So it works the same exact way. It's going to give me a random value. Either one of those will work. Before we used to only use the floor function, but again, as our library broadens for P5, we can use either one. Either one is going to work. So again, I go in there, it gives me the 0 index. It's now a whole number that allows me to find a specific index within my list. So now I'm going to go in here and we're going to see how this works. So I'm going to use the text. Again, like I mentioned before, text, it takes in a string. So whatever string that you want. But in this particular example, we want to call our foods and then call upon the food choice that we want. So we're going to go in here, I'm going to say foods. And then again, we're going to access the food choices so that we give it a random feature. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do my food choice. And then we have to tell it where do we want it to be placed. So I'm going to place it like 50, 140. So that's my X and my Y value. So I want food item, but I want the food choice, which is the random feature. So I want a random choice from my food category that's here, from my food list that's here. So let's run that. Notice I'm in index 2 below here in my console.log, and I got ice cream. So if we go back to our list that's up here, this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. So let's run that again. So I got, oh, it clearly spelled donuts wrong. Go ahead and fix that. Put that U there, and it should be unit. So if I run it again, index 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, French fries. And so we can see that our random feature works. So yeah, that's basically what we're going to go over today, how we can now randomize our list instead of just choosing specific index like we did in the last lesson where we did our colors. Your task for today is very similar to what you did before in the last lesson. The only thing is that you are going to create some simple design, make it very basic, where you have at least a minimum of 5 shapes that are going to call from your list or your array that you are going to create these different colors randomly from that list for your shapes in any which way that you want to. Now you can have more than 5 shapes within your design. You can also fill colors that are not going to be random. You can just fill a color that's going to be random, but 5 of them has to be randomly chosen from your list or your array. So I hope you have fun, and I will see you in the next lesson.